From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Making presentations to others is often a big part of formal learning. But things other than the words we say can affect our message. Some call this physical message, body language. Charles LeBeau is a professor of public speaking. LeBeau tells VOA that body language includes posture, eye contact, and gestures, how you move your hands or arms. He says presentations are especially difficult for people learning English, as they must deal with grammar and natural nervousness. One effect of being nervous is moving from side to side. A presenter does not need to stand perfectly still, but how a speaker moves is important. Whole body movement should be slow and planned. Public speakers should look at the audience as they talk, but they often look at their notes or at the screen if they have an electronic presentation. LeBeau says making eye contact can be very difficult. He says the best way to avoid this problem is to use images and few words for notes instead of whole sentences. The image should help communicate the point you want to make. Writing a few words with the image on your slide helps you remember that point. Then you can look at the audience. Other experts advise moving your body to a different place for each idea. Stay in place until you finish making that point. Then move to the next place on the stage. LeBeau says a good way to change your body language is to make a video of yourself. This helps you to become aware of what you need to change. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Educators across the United States are calling for major changes in the way students are admitted to colleges and universities. The Harvard School of Graduate Education and 80 other groups released a new report called Turning the Tide. It suggests that colleges ask for more information about a student in the admissions process. For example, the report suggests colleges look at a student's record of responsibility for others and their communities. In addition, the researchers say the chance of educational success should be available to everyone. David Hawkins is with the National Association for College Admissions Counseling. He says that most colleges require examples of writing with applications. But, he says, colleges consider test results and educational records more important. The report says this is good for some students, but hurts others. Students who can pay for private tutoring will have an advantage. The Harvard report says there should be less importance on educational test results. Colleges should look for examples of students working in their communities for long periods of time, the report says. David Hawkins says that educational records are still the best indicator of how students will perform in college. He also says that many colleges and universities agree with the Harvard report. But he says they still may not make changes. For VOA Learning English, I'm Peter Musto. From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. The European Union is not likely to cancel trade barriers on China this year. The European Union is worried that Chinese exports will lead to job loss in member nations. That is what the EU Chamber of Commerce in Beijing said in a recent report. The European Union is China's biggest trade partner. Last month, workers representing trade unions in 17 countries demonstrated in Brussels. Some carried signs that read, "Say no to MES for China." MES means market economy status. The unions blame both China and Russia for creating job losses. Job growth in Europe has been slow. Jörg Woodke is president of the EU Chamber of Commerce in China. He says unrest is making it extremely difficult for European politicians to support China's request for being granted the status of a market economy. If it is granted, the move would reduce trade barriers and make it easier for Chinese exports to flow to Europe. Critics warn that MES for China could lead to the dumping of goods at unfairly low prices. In trade, dumping is defined as selling a product in a foreign country at below its price at home. But the EU has introduced anti-dumping cases that can block the flow of Chinese goods. According to the EU Chamber of Commerce, all except one of China's industries were suffering from extremely low demand for the amount of goods they can produce. Chinese companies have tried to export surplus steel, which has pushed down global prices. For VOA Learning English, I'm Peter Musto.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Few people would disagree that email makes our lives easier, but misusing email can cause problems. Answering all those emails and processing all that information can overload the brain, causing stress. That is the finding of the company Future Work Center. The London-based business carries out psychological research on workplace life. Richard McKinnon was the lead writer of a report on messaging habits. He said, email can be a valuable, time-saving communication tool. But he said it can also be a source of stress and even anger for many people. He said stress does not come from the number of emails received. The problems are linked instead to how people deal with email. The study found two very stressful email behaviors. One is to leave email on all day and never sign off. The other is to read and answer emails early in the morning and late at night. Not all jobs are equal in connection to email stress. The jobs with the most email stress are marketing, public relations, media, and information technology. There are ways to cut down on email stress. Plan your use of email. Do not immediately react to email alerts. Use an automatic out-of-office reply more often. Use the telephone more to communicate. Even better, talk to people face-to-face when you can. Restrict use of the Reply All tool on email. Email is here to stay, so it is important that people control their email instead of it controlling them. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball. From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Social entrepreneurs are people who create startup companies that would help fields such as the environment, healthcare, or agriculture. These entrepreneurs use new ways of doing things to try to solve important economic and social problems. Their companies can be for-profit or nonprofit organizations. Funding for social entrepreneurs is increasing. Money is coming from foundations, institutional investors, and individuals. Kiplinger is a personal finance publication in Washington, D.C. It reported that the amount of money going into socially responsible investing almost doubled from 2012 to 2014 to more than $6 trillion. The Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship in Geneva, Switzerland, is a foundation that helps social entrepreneurs around the world. Each year, the foundation works with the World Economic Forum to search for outstanding social innovators with business models that are proven to drive social and environmental change. Like all entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs reinvest their profits in the enterprise to expand it. Kristen Gruss Richmond is the co-founder of Revolution Foods. Her company in Oakland, California, provides fresh food for families and schools. It is active in 11 states and Washington, D.C. Richmond said social entrepreneurs are driven by their values. And she gives this advice: align yourself with a team, a board, and investors who believe in your mission. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. A new phone app senses vibrations and alerts people to earthquakes. The phone app recognizes sudden shaking of the Earth's surface through sensors in smartphones. The new app is called My Shake. It is the work of 4 researchers at the University of California, Berkeley. They said they created a worldwide warning system that would inform people and give them time to prepare for earthquakes. Other earthquake apps include QuakeFeed, Quakes, and Earthquake. They show where earthquakes have happened, their strength, and any aftershocks. The apps use information from the U.S. Geological Survey. The My Shake app is available only for Android phones. Smartphones are equipped with accelerometers. These instruments measure movement. They also can measure the shaking of a machine, building, or other structure. Activity trackers and apps that count steps or exercise activities use accelerometers. Global Positioning System, also called GPS, apps also use them. My Shake uses phone accelerometers to measure seismic activity. It has been programmed to know the difference between normal activity and earthquake movements. The smartphone then sends seismic information to the app developers. The software developers say their app is correct 93% of the time. Several notifications from one area could mean that an earthquake may be taking place or will take place soon. The app also shows ways to stay safer during an earthquake. The developers say the app will improve as more people use it. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. There will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans by 2050 unless something is done. That is the warning in a new report from the World Economic Forum and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. If current waste activities continue, the report says, oceans will contain 1 ton of plastic for every 3 tons of fish in 2025. By 2050, plastics will weigh more than fish, the report says. Each year, about 8 million tons of plastic enters oceans around the world. The report says this is comparable to placing a garbage truck load of waste into the ocean every minute. Not all the plastic waste is purposely thrown into the ocean. Much of it starts the trip as waste on streets and sidewalks. The environmental group Marine Defenders says the street waste flows into pipes and then rivers during rainstorms. Unlike other trash in the ocean, plastic takes hundreds of years to biodegrade or break down. There is a way to lessen the amount of plastics going into the oceans. People can recycle more. To recycle is to change waste into different, useful material. The report's authors say currently only about 14% of plastics are recycled. The Natural Resources Defense Council says research now shows that fish are dying from eating plastics. The material can block their airways. It can also block their digestive systems and cause starvation. The organization says the material can also poison humans when they eat fish that have eaten plastic. For VOA Learning English, I'm Peter Musto.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Recent studies show extreme rises in worldwide sea level and Arctic temperatures. The Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences recently released the sea level study. It shows sea levels rose faster in the 20th century than in any of the 27 centuries before. The researchers say that from 1900 to 2000, sea levels rose 14 centimeters. Robert Kopp of Rutgers University in New Jersey is the lead author. He called the 20th century sea level rise extraordinary. And Kopp said, the rise over the last 2 decades has been even faster. The study shows that without a warming Earth, sea levels would have dropped by 3 centimeters and risen by 7. Co-author Stefan Rahmstorf is a professor of ocean physics at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Germany. He says sea levels will continue to go up. How much and how long? The research shows levels could rise more than a meter by the year 2100. Scientists from NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration did the Arctic temperatures study. It found that temperatures at the North Pole hit record highs in January. This news comes after scientists said 2015 was the hottest year ever recorded. The scientists also have noted a huge area of unusually warm water in the northern Pacific Ocean. They say it keeps air temperature about 3 degrees warmer than usual in that area. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. A new study shows a link between sleeping problems and young adults who use social media. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh's School of Medicine did the study. Jessica Levinson led the team. The researchers questioned 1,800 adults from 19 to 32 years old. The team asked how much and how often they used social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and LinkedIn. On average, members of the study group used social media sites 61 minutes a day. They also visited social media accounts 30 times a week, on average. 30% of those in the study reported having serious problems with sleeping. The people who made the most individual visits to social media were 3 times more likely to have sleep problems. Those who spent the most time on social media were 2 times as likely to have difficulty sleeping. Levinson says the more visits to social media sites the young adults had, the greater their chance of having problems with sleeping. So, rather than overall time spent on social media, repeated visits might be more harmful to sleep. Brian Primack is the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Health and Society of the Medical School's Health Sciences Department. He says more study is needed to learn if social media use increases sleep problems or if sleep problems increase social media use. The study was published in the online journal Preventative Medicine. For VOA Learning English, I'm Peter Musto.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. China is the world's second biggest economy, but recent reports show its economy is weakening. The numbers show the country's factory production is at its lowest level in 4 years. The official Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, marks activity in factories. The manufacturing PMI in China is reported by Market Economics. The index in China dropped to 49 in February. In January, the PMI was 49.4. Any reading of the PMI below 50 signals contraction or an economic decrease. It was the 7th month in a row the PMI dropped. Observers of the Chinese economy say February's PMI reading could have been affected by the Chinese New Year. Many factories close for an extended period of time, and workers stay home during the holiday. Another survey shows China's economy is slumping or falling. The Caixin Purchasing Managers Index fell to a 5-month low of 48 in February. The index calculates economic output, new orders, and employment. The economy in China grew at an annual rate of nearly 7% in 2015. That was the slowest amount of growth in 25 years. To help improve the economy, the Chinese announced a round of spending and added to the money supply. The People's Bank of China recently announced it was cutting the amount of money that banks must hold as reserves. The People's Bank also added $100 billion in currency into the banking system to aid in new lending. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Hollywood knows that China is the second largest movie market in the world. It will soon become the largest. Last year, movie ticket sales in China added up to $6.6 billion. So the American movie industry has developed ways to play a larger part in making and marketing films in China. American filmmakers are appealing to Chinese movie fans with more Chinese plots and characters. The movie Kung Fu Panda 3 is an example. The opening date for the animated movie was carefully chosen to get a lot of people into theaters. It was the Chinese New Year. Kung Fu Panda 3 earned more than $100 million in ticket sales on that day in China. The movie also broke with Chinese tradition. Most foreign films are not permitted in Chinese theaters during the New Year celebration. But Kung Fu Panda 3 was permitted because it has a Chinese partner, Oriental DreamWorks, based in Shanghai. For the United States, DreamWorks produced 2 language versions of the movie, one in Mandarin and one in English. Another movie with a Chinese plot will get attention later this year. The Great Wall will feature Hollywood's Matt Damon and Hong Kong's Andy Lau as lead actors. The English language film will also have a Chinese director. Paul Dergarabedian is a top expert at Rentrack, an international media researcher. He says many movie studios would like to partner with China because it is an important movie market. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. When American music star Kanye West has something to say, people seem to listen. Last month, West commented on Twitter about the cost of university textbooks. He tweeted that the prices must be lowered. A U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report shows that from 1977 to mid-2015, the cost of university textbooks increased at 3 times the rate of normal inflation. Within a few hours of Kanye West's tweet, Tidewater Community College in Hampton Roads, Virginia, answered. "We got you," the school tweeted back. "The nation's first textbook-free degree." Tidewater began offering what it calls a Z degree in 2013. The Z stands for zero textbooks. The 2-year program provides students with a business degree. Students in the Z degree program do not have to pay for required course materials. They all come from the Open Educational Resources Commons. They are free educational materials anyone can use. You can find open educational resources online at oercommons.org. The University of Maryland University College is another school that uses OER to help its students reduce costs. Most of the school's courses became textbook-free late last year. David Anderson is with the American Association of Publishers. He says that for-profit publishers work hard to reduce the cost of textbooks. He also says that for-profit and non-profit publishers should work together to create the best teaching materials. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. The Philadelphia Refugee Mental Health Collaborative is in the American state of Pennsylvania. The organization teaches refugees the skills needed to live in the United States. Melissa Fogg is the group's program manager. She told VOA that weather, language, and safety are a few issues that can cause problems. There are many unwritten rules. Unwritten rules are behaviors that no one talks about, but that most people understand. Fogg and VOA Learning English worked together to create a list of 5 important issues a new arrival to the U.S. should know about. The first one is to be on time. In the U.S., being on time is a sign of respect. If you are late by more than a few minutes, people will take your lateness as an insult. Number 2, tip in some situations. A tip is extra money. You should tip restaurant servers, taxi drivers, people who cut hair, and some hotel workers. A tip is between 15 and 20% of the value of the service. Number 3, be careful what you say. It is best to listen to people share their opinions first and then decide about sharing your own. Do not ask about someone's financial or marital situations. But if a person offers you this information, it is permitted. Number 4, be aware of personal space. People in the U.S. feel uneasy when a stranger stands too close to them. Take one step back. When meeting someone for the first time, hold out your hand. And the last one is to have respect for others. This includes waiting in line for your turn. Fogg said, "It takes time and work, but most new arrivals can feel like they belong." For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Simple bandages are easy to use. They cover and protect wounds, giving them time to heal. Now, scientists say they are developing new kinds of bandages. They have begun adding small sensors to bandages, making them more sensitive. This is the technology used in popular wearable devices, such as smart watches and fitness trackers. Scientists are also making new materials called hydrogels. Hydrogels are similar to human skin. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology have found a way to combine these two technologies. They created a stretchy material that is similar to human tissue. The new product has wires that lie in a Z-shaped design. The wires connect to the electronic sensors and stretch easily without breaking contact to the sensors. Zhenhe Zhao teaches mechanical engineering at MIT. He says the resulting product becomes a type of smart wound dressing. It can react to changes in the skin around it. For example, Zhao says if there is a sudden increase in temperature, a command will be sent. That command can control the delivery of a drug to a special location. LED lights in the bandage could warn patients and doctors about changes in the wound. Medication can quickly spread across the bandage through tiny passages. Researchers say the new material can be used both on the skin and inside the body. But it will be some time before these smart bandages reach the hospital or drugstores. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Researchers say they have identified a gene that can predict if you will have gray hair. The gene IRF4 was found and studied from the genetic codes of more than 6,300 people from Brazil, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, and Peru. The group included people of mixed European, Native American, and African ancestries. The IRF4 gene controls melanin production, which is responsible for the color of hair, skin, and eyes. Andres Ruiz Linares is a professor of human genetics at University College, London. He is the paper's lead author. He and his team identified a special gene found in about 15% of people with European ancestry. The people who carry this gene are more likely to have early gray hair. The researchers found that Native Americans do not carry this gene. The researchers say that gray hair is not influenced just by genetics. Stress or a terrible event can also contribute to a gray head of hair. The researchers say this study could be helpful to developers of hair care products. It could lead to treatments that may prevent or reverse the process that turns hair gray. The study also identified genes for other hair qualities. These included curly hair, beard, and eyebrow thickness. Ruiz Linares says linking genes to hair qualities is important. He says it could lead to better analysis of genetic information collected at crime scenes. The journal Nature Communications published the study. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Dying of a broken heart sounds like the ending of a sad love story, but it actually happens. The broken heart syndrome usually affects people who have received very bad news. Broken heart syndrome is officially called Takasobo syndrome, or TTS. It involves the sudden weakening of heart muscles. The signs of TTS are chest pain and shortness of breath. Although rare, it can lead to heart attacks and death. Recently, researchers discovered that even happy events can cause TTS. Christian Templin and Yelena Gadri are with University Hospital Zurich. For 5 years, they and a team of researchers tracked 1,750 cases of TTS across 9 countries. The team found that emotional shocks caused TTS in 485 of those 1,750 cases. And within that group of 485, a total of 20 people could be said to have suffered from happy heart syndrome. The events that caused happy heart syndrome include a birthday party, a surprise celebration, and the birth of a grandchild. However, none of these cases of happy heart syndrome caused death. Gadri and her team published their findings in the European Heart Journal. They found that TTS affects mostly women. About 95% of the patients in both the broken heart and happy heart groups are women. Happy and sad life events are, of course, very different. Further studies are needed to figure out if both kinds of TTS events share the same pathway in the central nervous system. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. February 2016 is the warmest February on record, according to data released by NASA. worldwide surface temperatures were 1.35 degrees Celsius warmer than average. That broke the record set in January, which was 1.15 degrees Celsius above average. Monthly temperatures were compared in the base years between 1951 and 1980. Some climate scientists were surprised by the extent of the warming. Jeff Masters and Bob Hansen from the website wonderground.com say the findings are a true shocker. They say it is another reminder of the continuing rise in the world's temperature resulting from human-produced greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. They are gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. Climate expert Paul Knappenberger says the weather event El Niño is also to blame for this year's high temperatures. El Niño is the result of a band of warm water in the tropical Pacific Ocean. When the heat from that water is released, the Earth's temperature goes up. Knappenberger says the combination of greenhouse gases and the El Niño causes a slow rise in the Earth's overall temperature as short-term rises and falls take place. He adds that after an El Niño, there are often La Niña events. He said this can lead to cooler than normal weather conditions. El Niño and La Niña can shift back and forth every 2 to 7 years, causing extreme weather. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko have their feet on the ground after almost a year in space. The two landed in Kazakhstan March 2nd on a Russian spaceship. Kelly and Kornienko spent 340 days in space. They lived on the International Space Station, or ISS, for longer than anyone else. Now, Kelly also holds the record for the longest time an American has spent in space, 520 days. After landing, the two men were put in special chairs until they got used to Earth's gravity. Kelly spoke about the difficulties of living on the ISS for a year. He says it was a severe environment with only a small personal space. He says the toughest part for him was being away from loved ones. Kelly and Kornienko performed scientific experiments on the ISS, including growing flowers and vegetables. NASA hopes the studies will help guide its Journey to Mars program. It will take astronauts about 500 days to travel to Mars and back. During that time, they will need to grow their own food and share small spaces for many months. Scott Kelly is also part of a twin study. He has an identical twin brother. Mark Kelly is a former astronaut. During the past year, NASA has been testing the brothers. NASA researchers are studying how time in space changes the way a body ages. NASA will take what it learns from these men and use the information to help new astronauts. The United States Space Agency hopes to send humans to Mars in the 2030s. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. The United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, has taken legal action in the American court system against the technology company Apple. The case involves an Apple iPhone 5C. The smartphone belongs to killer Syed Farook. Farook and his wife murdered 14 people in San Bernardino, California on December 2nd. They were killed in a gun battle with police later the same day. Investigators found an iPhone Farook used. Farook was employed by the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. They own Farook's iPhone 5C. The Public Health Department gave the FBI permission to collect information from the phone for their investigation. But the phone is locked with a secret password. The phone has a built-in tool that will remove all its information if the password is not correct after trying 10 times. Last month, a judge in Riverside, California, ordered Apple to create software to unlock the phone. The judge's order was supported by the FBI. Apple CEO Tim Cook claims the order violates Apple consumers' privacy rights and sets a bad example. He says it could take away the freedoms and liberty that government is meant to protect. Cook considers the software too dangerous to create. Once created, he argues, criminals could use the software to unlock iPhones and steal private information. This case may be argued for many months and years to come. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Prime Minister Hun Sen of the Cambodian People's Party joined the online social media site Facebook 3 months ago. Recently, he announced he had 3 million likes on his Facebook page. Now, Cambodia's ruling party spokesman has dismissed a report that the Prime Minister unfairly increased his number of Facebook likes. Hun Sen appears to have overtaken opposition leader Sam Raisy's 2.2 million likes. Raisy, head of the Cambodian National Rescue Party, has been on Facebook for at least 5 years. A report released by the Phnom Penh Post newspaper said that only about 20% of Hun Sen's likes were Cambodia-based users. Many of the likes came from people outside the country. The report raised the question that the Prime Minister might have been buying his support on the site. Nye Mose is head of the Internet Technology Department at an online rights advocacy group. He explains that Facebook users can pay money to advertise their Facebook page, a method known as boosting. Chuk Sopyap is executive director of the Cambodian Center for Human Rights. She says that a politician's popularity should not be judged by social media activity, but by their work as public officials. Hun Sen has been in power for more than 30 years. Political observers say Hun Sen is hoping that he can use Facebook to gain popularity. Important local and national elections will be held in Cambodia in 2017 and 2018. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans.
Body language is to make a video of yourself. This helps you to become aware of what you need to change. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Educators across the United States are calling for major changes in the way students are admitted to colleges and universities. The Harvard School of Graduate Education and 80 other groups released a new report called Turning the Tide. It suggests that colleges ask for more information about a student in the admissions process. For example, the report suggests colleges look at a student's record of responsibility for others and
Movement should be slow and planned. Public speakers should look at the audience as they talk, but they often look at their notes or at the screen if they have an electronic presentation. LeBeau says making eye contact can be very difficult. He says the best way to avoid this problem is to use images and few words for notes instead of whole sentences. The image should help communicate the point you want to make. Writing a few words with the image on your slide helps you remember that point. Then you can look at the audience. Other experts advise moving your body to a different place for each idea. Stay in place until you finish making that point. Then move to the next place on the stage. LeBeau says a good way to change your body From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Making presentations to others is often a big part of formal learning. But things other than the words we say can affect our message. Some call this physical message, body language. Charles LeBeau is a professor of public speaking. LeBeau tells VOA that body language includes posture, eye contact, and gestures, how you move your hands or arms. He says presentations are especially difficult for people learning English, as they must deal with grammar and natural nervousness. One effect of being nervous is moving from side to side. A presenter does not need to stand perfectly still, but how a speaker moves is important. Whole body movement.
David Hawkins says that educational records are still the best indicator of how students will perform in college. He also says that many colleges and universities agree with the Harvard report. But he says they still may not make changes. For VOA Learning English, I'm Peter Musto. From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. The European Union is not likely to cancel trade barriers on China this year. The European Union is worried that Chinese exports will lead to job loss in member nations. That is what the EU Chamber of Commerce in Beijing said in a recent report. The European Union is China their communities. In addition, the researchers say the chance of educational success should be available to everyone. David Hawkins is with the National Association for College Admissions Counseling. He says that most colleges require examples of writing with applications. But, he says, colleges consider test results and educational records more important. The report says this is good for some students, but hurts others. Students who can pay for private tutoring will have an advantage. The Harvard report says there should be less importance on educational test results. Colleges should look for examples of students working in their communities for long periods of time, the report says.